Welcome back to Writing and Chatting. I'm on the road, so I'm just going to read through the work that we've created together over the last 4 weeks, and we'll get back to creating and interacting next week, hopefully. So let's get started, right? Chapter 10, Something's Not Right. Lauren Sands pulled into the driveway of Hawkeye's house and right away knew something wasn't right. Hawkeye's cat, a gorgeous tortoiseshell fluffball by the name of Fireball, was seated on the front stoop. Fireball was an indoor cat. "Hey, Fireball, what are you doing out here?" she asked as she got out of the car. The cat purred and gave a frantic mew before rubbing up against her. "Don't worry, I'll help you get back inside soon." She stood on a stump near the side of the garage so she could peek inside it. The Volkswagen van, most generously described as a beater with a heater, as Hawkeye once said, was missing. She went up the front steps and knocked on the door just in case. Maybe he was sleeping. Maybe the car was in the shop? She hadn't seen him in chat for a couple of days, but she'd not thought much about it because he did that sometimes. Just disappeared and went quiet, only to return with no explanation for what happened or where he'd been. He could be moody, testy, but he was an incredible bass player, and the band wouldn't be the same without him. She worried about his mental health sometimes. She rapped on the door and waited, hoping for an answer, hoping he was just napping or something. She picked up Fireball and cuddled the cat. "You're probably starving, aren't you, girl?" Fireball gave a plaintive meow as she purred loudly. "Well, I'll get you fed just as soon as I can." She wondered if maybe the cat slipped out through an open window somewhere. So she walked the perimeter, hoping the neighbors wouldn't find her behavior too suspicious. When she came to the backside of the house, her heart dropped. The back door was kicked open. Glass from the porch door was scattered. There were drops of maroon on the pavement. Things escalated from Hawkeye maybe having a depressive episode again to, is he alive? She pulled out her cell phone and hit 911. All thoughts about Mammoth Caves and Mortis's strange scavenger hunt fled her mind in that moment. All she could think about was, is Hawkeye okay? She wanted to believe there'd just been some kind of accident and he was fine. But the evidence in front of her suggested that wasn't the case. 911, what's the emergency? "I think there's been a burglary gone wrong. The door's been kicked in and there's dried blood on the pavement." "Where are you located, ma'am?" the operator asked. She gave them Hawkeye's address. "We'll send an officer right away." The wind was a bit chilly as she stood there waiting for them. She wanted to go inside, but knew better. If it was a crime scene, it was better not to touch anything until the police had a chance to investigate. Fireball nuzzled her chin as if urging her to pay attention to her needs. She petted the cat and walked back to the car to see if she could dig out anything for her to eat or drink. "You poor thing." Fireball jumped into the driver's seat as soon as she opened the car, as if eager to find shelter from the wind. Lauren didn't usually like animals in her car, but she decided to make an exception for the distressed cat. She rummaged around to find a stick of beef jerky she'd bought earlier. "There you go. There's a little something to nibble on." Fireball sniffed the beef jerky and looked back up at Lauren and then back down as if to make sure it was okay, and then ate the chunk Lauren provided in 2 quick bites. "I guess you really were hungry," she said with a chuckle. How long has Hawkeye been missing? She wondered. Chapter 11. Hawkeye's Dilemma. "Keep your pants on, I'm coming," Hawkeye hollered from the back room. The pounding on the door sounded like someone who meant business. He'd been expecting a delivery all day and didn't want to miss it. He yanked open the door and found one very large man in a nondescript brown uniform standing on his porch. The man towered over him, and Hawkeye was not a small man, filling the doorframe entirely. "Can I help you?" he asked, even as the hair on the back of his neck began to rise. The man put an arm out to force his way through the door, and Hawkeye instinctively started to close it, but it stopped on the man's boot. He heard the sound of wood splintering, glass shattering, and a frightened yowl from Fireball. Turning to look, he saw 3 men piling in through the back door. Distracted from his front door visitor, he got knocked to the ground as that man and a partner he'd not seen pushed their way inside and slammed the door behind them. The faces of the men in front of him weren't familiar, but he didn't have long to look at them either. He was too busy fighting the 2 men on either side of him, one of whom flipped him on his belly as a knee went into the small of his back. It forced a gag into his mouth and threw a bag over his head. He had no idea who these guys were, what they wanted, or why they'd picked a fight with him. "Damn, I hope Fireball's okay," he thought, as they drug him out the back. He could feel the cool air on his face as they left the house. They ran into a bit of broken glass from the back door on their way out. He could feel the blood start to drip from his arm, the wet sound of it hitting the pavement below. The sound of a door sliding open, and then he felt cold metal on his skin before the door slid closed and locked again. What the heck is going on, he wondered. His days in the Navy were long over. He'd not been part of the force for more than 15 years, not since he'd taken his last tour. He'd come home with PTSD so bad he wound up on the streets for a while, and it was only in the last year he'd gotten into a home of his own. The online guitar community had been a healing place to be, and joining a band helped provide connections and a regular way of contributing to something. He couldn't imagine that he'd gotten anyone pissed off enough to warrant this, but he also couldn't imagine that this was connected to his time in the Navy. It just seemed so random. He didn't have money enough to be a ransom victim. Who the heck would even want to kidnap him? And why? He didn't have long to think about it as the engine gunned to life and the rattling sounds of the tools around him formed a kind of music all its own. He tried to focus on counting turns and listening to conversation. Someone in the front seat began speaking in Russian. He recognized the cadence even if he couldn't understand the language. A strangely familiar voice answered back, also in Russian. It was too weird. Where had he heard that voice before? He couldn't quite place it. It seemed more and more like this had to be connected to his days in the Navy, but what did they want with a broken-down sailor who'd not seen action in more than 15 years? He wished he could ask, but the gag in his mouth stopped him. Maybe this was a case of mistaken identity. Maybe they meant to grab someone else and he just happened to be in the wrong place. That would, honestly, make more sense, he thought. But he stayed quiet and kept listening, hoping he might find them giving him some kind of clue as to everything going on. But they were all speaking in Russian and he didn't understand a lick of it. So instead he thought about the stream tonight. Would Mortis and the rest of the guitar community notice he was gone? Would they investigate? It was his best hope for getting help. He didn't know too many other people in the town aside from his bandmates, and given that he and one of his bandmates recently got into a heated fight over a song that just wasn't coming together, he wasn't sure if they would miss him either. His temper sometimes burned bridges for him before his brain could catch up, and he always found apologizing tough to do after the fact. Some people wouldn't accept apologies anyway. He'd heard rumors that Mortis wasn't happy with him. Maybe he wouldn't care that he wasn't in his stream. Maybe nobody would miss him if he didn't show up. Fireball would, that's for sure. He hoped they hadn't hurt his cat. She was pretty much the only being in his life who was always there for him. Granted, it helped that he'd made her an indoor cat, so she didn't have a lot of options, but still, he could count on her purrs and warmth to cheer him up when he got into the blackest of moods. He wasn't sure what he'd do if something happened to her. He wished, not for the first time, that he'd developed more friends, more people who might care if he went missing and who would notice if he weren't there. But he'd not been too good about that. It was hard to make friends when you felt like your life was too messed up to be worth being friends with. The bass playing gave him an automatic in with most bands, but then his personal problems would get in the way. Inevitably, his life would collapse around him and he'd have an episode, and before he knew it, they would get tired of him too. It seemed to be a regular thing for him. The people he knew largely consisted of his current bandmates in the online guitar community. Would anyone care enough to look for him? He wasn't sure. Chapter 12. Seymour's investigation begins. Seymour's team lost their first 2 rounds. A sniper took them out, and he swore like a sailor before his phone buzzed again with a new message. Waiting on the police. Big trouble, Lauren texted. No sign of Hawkeye. That grabbed Seymour's full attention. He exited the game after giving his teammates a quick goodbye. What kind of trouble? Back door smashed in, blood on the pavement, was her response. Seymour immediately thought of Mortis's bizarre scavenger hunt earlier. Was he somehow in on this? Was he trying to send the community a signal? I'm going to call Mortis. I wonder what he knows, Seymour texted her. Good idea, was all Lauren responded. I'll let you know what I find out when the police arrive. Seymour hit the button for Mortis. The phone rang, but went straight to voicemail. Not a good sign. He tried again. No response. This was not looking good. He sent a text. Maybe Mortis just forgot to turn his phone back on. At least, he hoped that's what it was. Still, it didn't sit right with him. He decided there was only one real way to find out for sure. Head to Mammoth Caves. The park was about an hour's drive from his house if you went the speed limit, but speed limits were for suckers as far as Seymour was concerned. I'm headed to Mammoth Caves, he texted Lauren before leaving the house. It took him less than 10 minutes to get on the road. He filled up a flask of whiskey and tucked it into his go bag. You never knew when it might come in handy, and maybe Hawkeye would appreciate it when they located him. At 80 miles an hour, he could expect to be there in 40 minutes. He popped his cell phone into its holder and put on his playlist, jamming out to tunes to take his mind off the problems. Hang in there, Hawkeye. We're going to get this figured out, buddy. In spite of Hawkeye's somewhat taciturn nature, the community loved the man. He supported their streams and showed up for them in a lot of different ways, not to mention that his skills with the bass guitar were the envy of many. What kind of trouble had Hawkeye gotten himself into, he wondered. He hoped it wasn't too serious, but Lauren's mention of blood on the pavement sounded ominous, and Mortis's weird scavenger hunt of objects belonging to Hawkeye made things seem even worse. It was disorienting to think of real crisis coming to their community. Most of the problems they faced in common were financial, familial, or gear-related issues. This, though? This was next level. He was 10 miles out from the exit to Mammoth Caves when he spotted a familiar car with a woman showing legs standing outside of it. He pulled over behind the vehicle and got out. Delilah? He asked as he approached the car. I can't believe it's you. She turned to him, and her face registered shock, excitement, hope, and disbelief all at the same time. Seymour, what are you doing out here? Helping you, I guess. I was headed to Mammoth Caves. Why? He said. She looked beautiful, that dark hair of hers whipping in the wind and that short red mini dress conforming to her sleek curves. Even after 10 years, she still caught his breath when he looked at her. I guess you can see I got into a bit of a mess. I was headed to Nashville, she admitted. Old Bessie's in the back. I hope you can help me get back on the road again. Old Bessie was Delilah's acoustic guitar. You still running around with that thing? You've been playing that same guitar since college. Delilah nodded. No need to get a new guitar when the guitar you got works just fine. So what's the problem? Seymour asked, inspecting the vehicle. I don't see a flat tire or anything. Delilah shrugged. I'm not sure. It just lost power and then stopped. I was glad it wasn't too busy. I nearly got hit from behind trying to get it over to the side of the road, and people have been passing me all day long. Sounds rough, Seymour scratched his head. He wasn't much of a car guy and wasn't sure what would cause a sudden loss of power. He pulled out his phone to look it up. It sounds like it might be the alternator going out, which is killing the battery, but I'm no expert. I can take you to the next town over, and we can see if they can help you fix it if you'd like, he offered. Delilah bit her lip and looked down at the ground. I don't have any money to get it fixed, she confessed. Times have been a bit rough. Seymour knew all about that pain. Well, I don't have a lot myself, but I'll see what I can do to help. I don't think a new alternator and a battery should cost too terribly much. Delilah's eyes filled with tears, and she threw her arms around his neck and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Really? You'll do that for me? Seymour had always been a sucker for Delilah. Yep, anything I can do to help. He forgot, momentarily, all about his planned mission to rescue Hawkeye. Chapter 13. The police arrive. The police cruiser pulled up behind Lauren's car, and a tall, dark-haired man with light curls emerged from the vehicle. She waited for him to make the approach, sizing him up as he did. Are you Lauren Sands? He asked. I am, she said with a smile. Thank you for coming. I think my friend is in trouble. He nodded. That's what I gathered from the report. Can you show me what you saw? She walked with him to the back of Hawkeye's house and pointed out the shattered glass, the broken-in door, along with the bloodstains on the pavement. He took notes as she spoke. Thank you, Miss... How do you know this Hawkeye fellow? He asked. And what can you tell me about him? She shrugged. He's our bass player. You two aren't an item, are you? He asked. She shook her head and laughed. Hawkeye and me? No. He's more like a grumpy older brother, to be honest. The man makes it hard to love him, but we do our best. The officer nodded as he took notes. Tell me more? Lauren said, what would you like to know? How long have you known him? He asked. About a year in person. We met via a stream we both participate in, run by a guy named Mortis, the mad musician, a couple years ago. And he joined the band when we figured out we both lived in the same city, she explained. How did you discover that Hawkeye was missing? He asked her. Started with a phone call, I guess. Seymour and other of the guys in the stream asked me to check on Hawkeye, she explained. He knew we lived in the same city. I see. And why did he do that? The officer asked. Oh, that's right. It was Mortis's weird stream. He was doing this, scavenger hunt, he called it, out at Mammoth Caves, but all the stuff he listed off for us to look for was Hawkeye's. Really iconic, unique stuff that not just anybody would have. And then he was giving as a prize Hawkeye's most prized possession, his guitar. It shocked us both, she told him. The officer's eyebrows rose. So this Mortis guy is out at Mammoth Caves, offering a scavenger hunt for Hawkeye's stuff, including his most prized possession? She nodded. It sounds even weirder now that you say it like that. He frowned and closed his books. Do you have the number for this Mortis guy? She nodded and pulled out her phone. Right here. Can I get your number, in case I need to do a follow-up with you? Also, can I see your ID? He asked. She gave both to him. He thanked her and asked, anything else I should know? She shook her head. Just Fireball, his cat. I can't bring her to my apartment. What will be done with her? The officer eyed the fluff ball sitting in the seat of her car and shifted his feet uncomfortably. We usually take him to the shelter. You can't do that, she gasped. Fireball's his only stable companion. He needs her. The officer frowned and looked back at his vehicle. I suppose, maybe I could take her? Lauren gave him a smile. You would do that? Oh, I'd be so appreciative. You've got no idea what that would mean to Hawkeye. I don't know if my roommate's gonna like that, he said. Your roommate? You mean girlfriend? She asked. The officer blushed. No, ma'am. Roommate. I don't have a girlfriend. Lauren picked up Fireball and handed the cat to the officer. Well, if you give me your number, I can bring you some cat food and litter later. I'll make sure you've got everything you need to take care of Fireball until Hawkeye gets back. The officer's eyebrows rose up in surprise. Thanks? I guess you can put her in the cruiser until I get finished with the investigation. Lauren eyed the cruiser and then the officer. Why don't I stay out here with her while you get to work? That way you don't have to worry about her making an accidental mess in your vehicle. He gave her a lopsided grin. That's probably for the best, miss, although I really shouldn't be letting you stay. It might be dangerous. You sure you don't mind? She winked. I like a little danger. That's why I joined a rock band. He chuckled. What's the band name? I may need to ask some of the others about Hawkeye. Toxic Chemical Smoothie, she said. It's the best stuff you've never had. Quite the name there. I'll have to check it out sometime, he said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to get some work done. Please stay in the vehicle with the cat until I return. And that's where we ended it, folks. We will be picking back up next week. I hope you check it out. I look forward to working again with you on this project. It's hard to believe we've already hit 13 chapters in. At the rate we're going, we'll probably end up with around 42, so we're probably about a quarter of the way through. Woo! We get about a chapter a week done, and we should have it done by the end of the year. And then we'll have the fun of starting to do real editing. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a blessed day.